Good evening and a very warm welcome to First Issues. The winds of change are blowing strong and the insurance industry is adjusting its sails accordingly. This was the overriding message at the first ever Insurance Institute of Botswana's annual conference that took place last week at Travel Lodge here in Gaborone. With a mandate to stimulate skills development and greater professionalism within the industry and therefore improve the public's confidence, IIB got the ball rolling with some stimulating conversations facilitated by experts from near and far. Speakers from different corners of the globe convened for eye-opening discussions on a variety of issues, as well as various networking opportunities, in an excellent beginning to what will be an annual event. Along with discussing the challenges presented by this information age, laying bare the risks and threats of cybercrime, the fantastic opportunities of this age were also unpacked. Can you imagine, with just the click of a button, deciding when and where to insure your valuables, and only paying for those specific periods of time? Pushing a button to insure your phone, camera, bicycle, or any other valuable when you maybe visit a crime-prone area, and then pushing that same button again to suspend your insurance cover when you feel much safer. Can you imagine having your insurance claims processed in a matter of minutes and sometimes even seconds via an app on your phone? It is already happening, according to our guest, the editor of Insurance Industry and Risk Management publication, Cover Magazine, Tony van Niekerk. Our discussion with him gives you just a small taste of what was discussed at the content-laden conference and is focused on technological developments within the insurance industry, increasingly referred to as Insuretech.
Insuretech is not just these sort of novel ideas of upfront applications that we hear about in the States and in Europe and so on. Insuretech is about everything that assists us from a technology perspective to do what we as an industry do better and more effective and so on. But it is driven to a large extent by the novel things. So if we look at some of the novel things that are making inroads into all over the world, some of the important ones that people might have heard of is an application called Trove, which is basically on-demand insurance. So what they do is you've got an application on your phone, and through this application you register with the insurance company, you register your items that you want to insure. You can insure just specific items like only your TV or your camera or your phone or your bicycle, and you then can choose when you want to insure that. So for instance, if you have an expensive bicycle, when you leave the house, you click on your app, your bicycle is insured, and you go for your 10 or 20 or 30 kilometer cycle. When you get back, you take your bicycle into your house, you click off, and you only pay for that time that you've got the bicycle out on the road. So it makes it more effective for you as a client, cheaper. But if you look at it from an insurance perspective, with the phone, with the tracking on the phone, the GPS, etc., they know exactly where you are, where you cycle, when you cycle, how much you cycle, and for them it's a better way of assessing that risk and being able to determine your premium on your bicycle. So if you drive a cycle in a high-risk area, they will know that, and they'll be able to up your price. So if you take your bicycle and every day you cycle in a low-risk area, but in a couple of months' time you go to a high-risk area to go and cycle, they will know that and they can change the premium. So it works both ways.
The biggest benefit presented by technology to the insurance industry is data. Industry leaders are those who know how to utilize the mountains of information now available to optimize the industry's centuries-old risk management capabilities. Tony shares some more novel examples of Insuretech.
There's also an application called Lemonade, which is a homeowner's insurance specifically for renters. It started in Manhattan in New York. There's a lot about the application, but one or two of the sort of novel ideas is, first of all, that it's very user-friendly. They look at convenience, they look at accessibility, they look at speed of access. So their claim to fame is, for instance, they can take on a new policy in 90 seconds. They can pay a claim in something like 9 seconds. And then on the other hand, when it comes to scalability, etc., for instance, when they started out, they had 37 employees and they were covering people in one state. They then moved to include a second state, and they only went from a couple of extra employees, so much so that they've added 3 more states. They've now got 4 states in which they operate, and they went from 37 to 42 employees. So it's a very scalable, and it makes it very efficient, which works for both sides of the client, both the client as well as the insurer, in terms of managing the risk. So there's a whole bunch of those sort of novel applications. But when we then come back to the reality of it, you would see there are also things like artificial intelligence that is used quite a bit. IBM, for instance, has got a well-known system called Watson. And Watson basically is an application that companies use to be able to learn from experience. As an example, for instance, using Watson in a call center. Instead of in the past where you have a new call center agent come in, that agent learns from one trainer in a classroom, then goes and sits on a call with one experienced agent and learn from that agent until they start doing it themselves. The end result is that agent has learned from 2 people. What they do with IBM Watson is IBM Watson is plugged in, and IBM Watson learns from all of these call center agents and gain knowledge as to how calls are answered, what questions people asked, what questions they ask after they've been given an answer. And so they start learning the behavior of callers. And through that, then they can then preempt questions and preempt answers. So instead of waiting for the client to ask the question, they already give the information, which shortens the time that it takes to deal with any particular client. The interesting thing also is that, as you might have heard of what they call chatbots, for instance. Now, chatbots work in the same way, where through IBM Watson, they can learn what the clients are going to ask, and you would not even realize that you're speaking to a robot.
Do stay with us. Tony has many more exciting examples to share with regards to Insuretech.
To get more from life, we need all the help we can get. Like getting a 105% home loan to cover costs like legal fees and deposits. And 55 days interest-free credit when swiping your credit card. And paying 0% deposit to drive the car you want. And helping save for those big things for your family. And earning real rewards for just doing your everyday banking. Isn't it time you got more from life with gold? Switch to FNB today. FNB, how can we help you?
Welcome back to First Issues, as we continue to look at some of the more interesting technological developments within the insurance industry, with the help of the editor of Cover magazine, Tony van Niekerk. Is it all gains, though, with this increased efficiencies and all these developments that you're describing? Are there any challenges presented to the insurance industry with new
Yes.
tech?
If we look at innovation and technology, what happens is the different places open up to make money, different places open up that can be insured. So if we, for instance, look at technology, with the development of technology, we get a lot of cyber challenges. As you would know, you get cyber breaches, you get data that gets stolen, you get data that becomes inaccessible when you need it for your business, etc. All of that then again creates insurable risk that the insurance industry can then create new products for people, for companies, etc. And so when we think of people are going to lose their jobs because of this or because of that, new opportunities open up and people get jobs in other areas. In the same way where, for instance, financial advisors and brokers feel under pressure because they're worried with all the regulatory changes, etc., that they might lose their jobs or that there might not be reason for it. But take, just as an example, cybersecurity and cybercrime. How much advice a company needs to be able to understand that risk, to be able to manage that risk, to be able to prevent catastrophes, etc. And who provides that? That's the brokers. So maybe they lost out on motor insurance, for instance, that has gone direct because of increased technology, mobile phones, etc. They can gain in other areas where new risks arrive and where new risks need professional advice. So it is a challenge because people have to change their mindsets. They have to decide, do they want to continue in this environment? Do they fit in? And you need to sort of take your old hat off and realize that there are other opportunities, other ways of doing things, and you have to keep an open mind.
Service providers must just stay abreast or aware of the changing winds, I guess.
Yes, that's exactly, you know, as I said earlier on, it's not a question of keeping up with the Kardashians. It's more a question of understanding your clients and knowing what exactly their needs are and looking at what other people, even in other industries, etc., are providing them as solutions to everyday problems.
It seems, however, that the insurance industry that you have described and the developments and advancements that you described are worlds away from what we're seeing here in Botswana. Is this something we should anticipate in the near future, or what kind of timelines should we anticipate in this region?
Yeah, I don't think that you should sort of see it as that you're years behind.
Yeah.
You should more look at it as you catering for the client and his needs and his requirements as they are at the moment, and you need to anticipate as the clients change. So as the local clients become more and more exposed to other types of products, applications, and they use them more and more, the demand is going to be more that they need a different approach from the industry, and the industry needs to keep up with that. So I wouldn't say that, you know, tomorrow it's going to change or in a month's time and, you know, the sky is going to fall on the insurance industry. It doesn't really work like that. However, as markets become tougher and the economy struggles with growth, the industry looks for new opportunities, and the industry looks for new risks, better ways of managing, understanding risk, etc. And that's where the technology then comes in. So if a particular portfolio of business is not making money, technology might not be a silver bullet, but it could provide some answers as to what could be done into the future to optimize the profits on a particular portfolio or to service the clients better, etc. And nowadays, the information is so accessible that anybody in the industry can research any area that another company might have solved a problem or optimized an area of business with technology, and they can go and look at how they've done it and start implementing it themselves.
We look forward to sharing with you in the weeks to come more of the illuminating themes that were discussed at the first ever Insurance Institute of Botswana's annual conference. Do stay with us, however, as up next is another issue of interest.
To get more from life, we need all the help we can get. Like getting a 105% home loan to cover costs like legal fees and deposits. And 55 days interest-free credit when swiping your credit card. And paying 0% deposit to drive the car you want. And helping save for those big things for your family. And earning real rewards for just doing your everyday banking. Isn't it time you got more from life with gold? Switch to FNB today. FNB, how can we help you?
Welcome back to the show. In recognition of the great importance and need for good personal financial management, we here at First Issues have done a number of shows looking to equip our viewers with the necessary skills for good money management. In the past, we have looked at fundamentals like how to draw up a budget, different investment tools, as well as various products that will serve you well upon retirement. We acknowledge that even for those struggling to gain that discipline to better manage their finances, that life can also toss in its own major curveballs, such as the upheaval of a divorce, the loss of a job, or even a chronic illness that has its own medical and other related expenses. These are some of the events that can completely obliterate someone's financial standing. Most significantly, consumers are advised as to how they can claw themselves back up out of such a situation, regain their creditworthiness, and most importantly, their peace of mind. We are joined now by Nelson Letswene, author of several publications such as 7 Essential Money Skills, If We Were All Financially Literate, 49 Virtues of Financial Knowledge, and other publications to discuss exactly what bankruptcy, or insolvency as we call it in our country, is. Thank you, Mr. Letswene. When we say someone is insolvent or bankrupt, what exactly do we mean by that?
Well, insolvency basically means your loans or your debt is more than your assets, but actually they've eaten away everything. You know, when we talk about net worth, we're talking about the difference between your assets and your liabilities. But once your liabilities have exceeded your asset, then you're basically insolvent. So your assets can disappear among all the people that you owe, and you still owe some more. So basically, that's when we say you are an insolvent person.
Wouldn't that definition mean that most of us are insolvent, seeing that when you take a loan for a house or a car, you're probably paying back twice what that asset is worth at that particular time that you are in debt for?
No, not really, because you see, when you buy a car on loan or you buy a house on loan, the asset that you have is your ability to work, and the fact that you are having a salary every month, that is an asset in itself, and that may balance out against the loans. As long as you'll be able to pay for the duration of this, you'll be able to work. That's why they will not give you a loan when you are already 55, because then your term of working is shorter than the amount of time required to pay off a house loan or something like that. So basically, not everybody is insolvent, but because other assets are intangible, like your ability to work and your ability to make an income. That is what the lenders are banking on, basically.
What then does happen if someone is unable to pay back all they owe? What happens at the point of insolvency? What are the legal implications?
When you're insolvent, I mean, there's a number of ways basically to get to there. There's the whole idea of you are failing to pay your debts, and somebody has taken you, say, to court, and they want to recover something from you. You may not necessarily be insolvent at that time, because they can come into your asset base and take some of your assets and sell them and get their money back. But if they sold all your assets and they can't get anything further, basically that's, there's nothing more they can do in terms of that, but you still owe them. So if you end up being insolvent in those cases, they will list you on the, with the ITC, so that you're not able to take any more loans anywhere. So everybody is aware that this person doesn't have the resources or the ability to pay back loans. So the whole idea of being on the credit bureau or the ITC is basically to warn other would-be lenders to not give you a loan because you are not in a position to pay, or perhaps because of character, you don't have the character of paying. So basically that's what being listed on ITC is all about.
How then would somebody get themselves out from that position into a more financially stable position?
So it depends where you're at. I mean, if you owe just say one company and they've listed you, you can go and pay back what you owe them and then ask them to go remove you from the ITC. They'll be able to do that. But obviously, if you are so insolvent that there's not enough assets to pay back, then you're going to have to stay there until you are quote unquote rehabilitated from debt. And that's basically where you're going to, you just have to wait it out basically until you are able to either to accumulate more assets to be able to continue to pay back, or you just go to jail if you took too much debt and you knew that you couldn't afford it.
What advice do you have for somebody to get themselves out of insolvency, maybe step by step, from what is probably a mentally and emotionally trying time? How would you get them to assess and make a plan forward?
You have to develop what we call a debt management plan. A debt management plan is a step-by-step process where you deliberately go talk to your creditors and make either new arrangements with them to start paying them at a rate that you can afford until you are able to pay out. Sometimes you get the so-called debt consolidation loans, which in my opinion don't necessarily get you out of debt. Sometimes people think when they got that loan and they quote unquote cleared, they're out of debt, but you are not. You're actually still in debt because you took a loan to pay a loan. That doesn't mean you are out. So debt management and getting out of debt, it's a long-term process. You have to be patient with yourself. You can't, if you are on a 3-year process or a 5-year process, somewhere in the middle of the second year, want to take another loan. You need to be aware that for the next 3 years, I am not taking any loans because I'm on a debt management system to get me out of debt. And there are certain ratios that you need to be able to pay attention to. The ratio of your income that goes towards debt. It's very important. It's good that it doesn't go over 50%. 30% is normal, but over 50%, it's too much. And some people are at the point where they are, they're paying too much. 60, 70, 80% of their income towards debt. That is already too much. So you need to be able to start a debt management plan to drop down the amount of your income that goes towards debt.